Hi everybody, Chris here from Truly Holistic. In this video, we're going to be doing a 3 healing for you, which in regards to your airway, your respiratory system. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to involve a makeup of what you are as an infinite consciousness. And you're made up of the 5 elements, which are earth, air, water, fire, ether. In this one, we're going to use the air element, right? Which makes a lot of sense, right? We're dealing with the airway. We're dealing with the respiratory system, which is chiefly, the role is chiefly based on our ability to breathe in, right? Breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. But there are so many health problems that are associated with our airway, our respiratory system, that we're going to provide this free healing for. We're also going to talk a little bit more about how that makeup of the air element, yes, is connected to your airway, but also in regards to how it's about your guidance, about what people would consider your higher self, your guides. And we're going to talk a bit about that too. So it's going to be really interesting, really exciting. Now, of course, when we do the free healing, I'd always love to see your feedback. So if you can post comments below about what you felt from the healing. Now, so let's talk about what the air element stands for, what it represents, because when we look at those 5 elements, they all have a role or are a stepping stone towards our purpose, our outcome and being here, which within the spirituality or consciousness circles would define as ascension. And quite often I'm saying with my clients that the very path to our ascension, right, to fulfill our soul's purpose in being here, is the exact pathway into providing a state of wellness and vitality to our body, right, to remedy, to rejuvenate, regenerate the body. So when we look at the air element, that is all about self-awareness, okay? When we look at the first element, which is the earth element, that is ground or grounding. And then the next one is the air element, which is self-awareness. Water is then flow, fire is renew, and then finally ether with new beginnings. So as I mentioned, as the title of this video about airway, a reference of what we're using to breathe, but also, as I said, when airways connected to our guides, our higher aspects of ourself, it's associated as one of those principal concepts of meditation to gain a meditative state, which of course is to focus on the breath, right? Which people would also refer to as breath work, okay? And the thing about breath work or focusing on our breath is a return of our self-awareness. As the human, especially when the mind and its thoughts and mentality are guiding how we perceive and how we process our reality, we tend to be very drawn and distracted to all those outside variables. And as we do that, we lose our self-awareness, okay? And then when we focus on the breath and do that breath work, it's a return of that self-awareness, right? And of course, that is very important to get to that stillness, that silence of what a meditative state presents, which in fact is your natural state, a state of being, which is allowing our awareness to drop out of the head and drop into our heart, which then fulfills or facilitates a network, a pathway of your higher self, right? This is how it connects to those guides. So all of a sudden, we are connected to everything we are, right? As a soul consciousness, as an infinite consciousness that is bound and connected to a multitude of realities and dimensions, having experience, converting that experience into wisdom, right? So we're connecting to a multi-dimensional or multi-universal library. And so all of a sudden we have that path laid for us, that guides for us, showing us the way, right? Hence airway, okay? Now, what I find really interesting also about it, and I'm just going to bring this up here. This is the what I call the ascension map, right? As you can see there. And what is it depicted as? This is the makeup of everything you are, as in a consciousness. It's depicted as a tree. And when we look at the lungs anatomy, right, and the rest of the airway, respiratory system, it looks like an upside down tree. Isn't that interesting? And you can see where the air element component is, right? It's that trunk, right? And our airway is really a trunk, right? And as you can see on this ascension map, there are all this term generation. Generation means reality. So your unique energy signature, which is another way of calling your soul, right, is spliced itself amongst multitude of realities to amplify its ability to convert its experience into wisdom, right? So when we do breath work or focus on our breath, right, to gain our self-awareness that presents our natural state, which is to get our heart open, we can connect to this wisdom that's bound and connected to a multiverse, right? That shows us the way, right? Hence the word airway. So it's pretty cool, right? So, but what we're going to do this free healing, we're going to imprint that air element to your airway, to your respiratory system. So we're going to go and do that now. Here we go. Now, for everybody watching and listening to this video, in regards to their entire respiratory system, their airway, I want to imprint the air element to their airway, to their respiratory system, please. Because that air element is your expansion. And we originally came here as a soul to expand our experience, to expand our creation, not to limit it. Right? And we could see that limitation as a constriction of your airway, constriction of your respiratory system, a constriction to your breathing. While if we get our heart open and we allow ourselves as what we authentically are as a soul consciousness to come through the heart, present itself through the respiratory system in airway, we present that expansiveness, that dilation of the airway of our respiratory system. Strong. Wow. Wow, that's clearing in the heart. Okay. So what I'm going to quickly talk about now is a lot of people that have overwhelmed nervous systems or hyperactive nervous system, right? And an overwhelmed nervous system is when we start to embody energies of our circumstance, our situation, outside variables that then overwhelm our nervous system. And why the nervous system gets overwhelmed is because we're taking on energies that are not our own. Well, they're not our own energy signature, right? As I showed there. That's your unique energy signature. That's your true oneness, your true network, which is forged by an open heart, not by the mind. Very important to know, because humanity is generally forged by the mind, which creates a connection to what I call the hive mind. And when we are in mind thought mentality, we dial up to that network, right? If you see the analogy where I'm going with the internet, right? We're connecting to that network of the mind. And every other human that's connected through the mind to that network, you are opening yourself to take on their energies as well, right? Their turmoil, their sadness, right? Their lack, their voids, which means that you're taking on energies that are not your own unique energy signature, right? And what happens is your auric field collapses in. And that's when you get stressed and overwhelmed, right? Because the body's communicating to you, because the body speaks through symptom, right? Through what you feel, okay? And so it's trying to tell you, hey, you need to change the way you're applying yourself so you can let go and shrug off this energy that's not yours, which we'll call discordant energy or discordant field, which is currently stopping you from facilitating what you are, right? Coming back to that. Okay. The whole reason we're here is to facilitate more of ourself. Ascension is all about facilitating more of ourself to be represented here. And as you can see, right, you can see with in green, the earth generation, right, which is the earth element. This is your experience here on earth. And as I said, it's a step-by-step process, right? Earth is all about ground and grounding. And of course, that's connecting with the earth, but we can go even further with that. Our original ground is getting our heart open and to reside within our heart, right? To experience reality from the heart. Okay. And of course, what the heart facilitates is what you are sustained by, which as a human, we tend to label it as love. Right? Love is not something to come here to seek and search. Love, well, we should be a representation of love because that's what we authentically are. So you go earth, and then the next step is air, which we've done the free healing all about, and which is self-awareness. And then the next step is water, which is flow, right? Because water in our physical reality is a physical embodiment of flow. We can learn a lot from that. And, you know, it's so that going with the flow, being in the flow, very essential. And then you got fire, which is the first layer of soil to the tree, which is you as consciousness. And fire is to renew, right? Which is to let go of things that are not you, right? To dissolve and burn attachments, dependencies that are holding you behind instead of forging you forward to evolve and expand your creation. And of course, ether is the end result of all those stepping stones that you go through, which is new beginnings. And that's what ascension is all about. Ascension is about facilitating what you begin and bringing it forth here to be a representation through you here. That's what it is all about. Okay. Now, so you could see that as your network, but of course, through the mind, there's a different network that overwhelms the nervous system. So, you know, you hear this a lot, right? We need to regulate your nervous system. And of course, breath work and breathing is associated with that. But as I mentioned before, that breath work, that breathing is more about regaining your self-awareness, because when we're in mind, thought, mentality, we externalize our viewpoint on reality. So we're more invested in what's going on out here than we are about what we're doing, which means we're losing our self-awareness. Okay. So our nervous system gets overwhelmed and bombarded when we are in mind, thought, mentality. And that is really what we are all taught and conditioned to utilize as our primary form of discernment as the human. Okay. But when we do that breath work, or we just realize that, hey, I am what comes through an open heart. So I drop my awareness in my heart and become very present. Then all of a sudden, what happens to the nervous system there is your field starts to expand out again, and it regulates the nervous system. And what that means by regulating, that's to calm it down, but also to bring it back into balance. Because what the heart innately does is shifts things that are out of balance back into balance. Okay, and this is the key, right? Because there's so much chaos, so much conflict, which we assign to what I call the game of duality, which is the human, the individual, going about life and experiencing life out of mind, thought, mentality, being locked into a game they aren't even aware they're playing, that enables them to forge their energy in a way that then sabotages them, that does not allow them to ascend, doesn't allow them to grow as a consciousness as you were originally designed to come here for. which then causes all these illness because all of a sudden your field collapses in. And what happens is you lose your flow. And when you lose your flow, then all of a sudden illness happens within the body. Okay, so that's all tied in with this whole aspect of all the elemental components of what the makeup of what you are, including the air element. That's very much tied to, as I say, breath work, breathing, to this video, this free healing in regards to the respiratory system. So anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this video, this free healing. Please, again, comment and tell me what that felt like with the free healing. If you're interested in booking a session with me, go to my appointment page, which is at trulyholistic.net/appointments/ go and check that out. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, push the notification bell to be notified when the next video drops. Until next time, catch you later.